The little girl stood beneath the golden afternoon sun, clutching a photograph of her mother in one hand and her father's sleeve in the other, while the richest woman in the city stared at them from across the hotel lobby and realized that, for the first time in her life, money could not fix what was breaking in front of her. She had spent years building a company worth millions, learning how to control boardrooms, silence critics, and hide every weakness behind a perfect smile. But that afternoon, one exhausted father and his lonely little daughter were about to change her life forever. Before we begin, if you believe that kindness can give someone a second chance and that love can find people in the most unexpected places, please like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Epic Story Hub. Your support helps us bring more emotional stories like this to you. It was a bright Saturday afternoon when Seraphina Vale walked into the Grand Meridian Hotel wearing an ivory business suit, dark sunglasses, and the expression of a woman who had forgotten what it felt like to slow down. At 34, she was the youngest CEO in the history of her company, admired by executives and feared by competitors. She had come to the hotel for an important charity luncheon where several investors and business leaders were waiting to meet her. Everything about her life was carefully planned. Her meetings were scheduled weeks ahead, her meals were timed between appointments, and even her smiles seemed calculated. Love had never been part of the plan. Then she noticed the man standing near the hotel entrance. His name was Cassian Rowe, although she did not know that yet. He looked nothing like the wealthy men who usually surrounded her. His navy suit was clean but slightly worn, his hair was untidy, and there were dark circles beneath his eyes that told a story no expensive watch could hide. Beside him stood his 7-year-old daughter, Maribel, holding a small pink backpack against her chest. The little girl looked frightened. Cassian kept checking his phone, swallowing nervously as one message after another appeared on the screen. Finally, he closed his eyes and whispered something that made Seraphina pause. He looked like a man trying desperately not to fall apart in public. Seraphina would have walked past him if Maribel had not suddenly dropped her backpack. A small photograph slipped from the bag and landed on the polished marble floor. Seraphina bent down and picked it up. It showed a smiling woman standing between Cassian and a much younger Maribel. The woman had bright eyes and the kind of smile that made the photograph feel warm even in the cold hotel lobby. Cassian quickly took the picture from Seraphina's hand and thanked her. His voice was quiet, almost embarrassed. Seraphina noticed the way he looked at the photograph before putting it safely back into the backpack. There was grief in his eyes. Maribel looked up at Seraphina and asked if she was the lady from the television. Seraphina smiled and admitted that she was. The little girl then asked the question that changed everything, whether Seraphina was married. Seraphina almost laughed, but something in the child's innocent face stopped her. She said no. Maribel looked toward her father with concern. Cassian finally explained that his late wife had been his daughter's mother and that today was the first family charity luncheon Maribel had attended since her mother died. His late wife's parents were going to be there, along with several people who had known their family for years. Unfortunately, Cassian's former business partner had spread rumors that he was incapable of raising his daughter alone and that his life had become unstable since his wife's death. Cassian had promised Maribel that they would attend together, but that morning, her grandparents had told him they would not come unless he brought someone who could convince them that he had created a stable family environment for Maribel. He had no wife. He had no girlfriend. And he had no idea what to do. Seraphina listened silently. Then Cassian made an unexpected request. He asked whether she would pretend to be his wife for one evening. Seraphina stared at him as though he had lost his mind. He immediately apologized, explaining that he was desperate. He did not want money. He did not want publicity. He only wanted his daughter to feel safe for one afternoon. He promised that she would never have to lie about anything afterward. Seraphina should have refused. Instead, she looked at Maribel. The little girl was staring at her with the fragile hope of a child who had already lost too much. Seraphina remembered something from her own childhood. Her father had once told her that successful people were not those who owned the most, but those who could still make someone else feel less alone. She had forgotten those words for years. That afternoon, they came back to her. Seraphina agreed. The transformation was almost unbelievable. Within an hour, she and Cassian were walking into the private luncheon together, pretending to be husband and wife. Maribel held Seraphina's hand, and the simple warmth of the child's fingers made Seraphina unexpectedly emotional. People turned to look. Whispers spread across the room. Cassian introduced Seraphina as his wife. For the first time in years, Seraphina felt uncomfortable being watched. Yet when Maribel smiled at her, she forgot about everyone else. The luncheon began beneath a glass ceiling where sunlight poured across long tables covered with white flowers. Outside, the city glittered beneath the afternoon sky. Inside, however, Cassian looked increasingly tense. One of the older guests approached them and asked Seraphina how long she and Cassian had been married. She hesitated. Cassian quickly answered. They had been married for 3 years. Seraphina nearly choked on her water. Maribel covered her mouth to hide a laugh. For the first time that day, Cassian smiled. It was a genuine smile, tired but beautiful. Something inside Seraphina shifted. She had seen thousands of smiles in corporate meetings, but none had ever felt as real as his. Later, when Maribel became overwhelmed by the noise, Seraphina took her outside into the hotel garden. The afternoon sun had softened, turning the flowers golden. Maribel sat beneath a tree while Seraphina helped her open the pink backpack. The little girl pulled out another photograph. This time it showed her mother holding her on a beach. Maribel quietly explained that she missed her mother every day. Seraphina sat beside her and listened. She did not try to give advice. She did not say everything would be fine. She simply stayed. Sometimes, Seraphina realized, the greatest kindness was not finding the right words. It was refusing to leave someone alone with their sadness. When Cassian found them, he stood several feet away and watched. He saw the most powerful woman he had ever met sitting beneath a tree with his daughter, carefully fixing the little girl's loose shoelace. Something in his chest tightened. He knew their arrangement was pretend. But the way Seraphina cared for Maribel did not feel pretend. As the afternoon continued, the three of them moved through the garden together. Maribel eventually began laughing, chasing butterflies across the grass while Cassian and Seraphina followed behind her. For a few hours, they looked like an ordinary family. And that was exactly what frightened Seraphina. Because she had spent her entire life convincing herself that she did not need one. Near sunset, the charity event ended. The guests began leaving, and Cassian thanked Seraphina for helping him. He told her that she had done more for Maribel in one afternoon than she could ever understand. Seraphina smiled and said it had been nothing. Cassian shook his head. He told her it was not nothing. Then he admitted that he had forgotten what happiness looked like until he saw his daughter laughing again. Those words stayed with Seraphina. When they reached the hotel entrance, Maribel suddenly hugged her. Seraphina froze. Nobody hugged her. Not anymore. She slowly wrapped her arms around the child and closed her eyes. For one brief moment, the world disappeared. There was no company. No investors. No deadlines. No expectations. Only a little girl who needed someone to hold her. When Maribel finally stepped away, she whispered that she wished Seraphina could come home with them. Seraphina looked at Cassian. He looked embarrassed, but there was pain behind his eyes. Seraphina gently told Maribel that some wishes needed time. That night, Seraphina returned to her penthouse overlooking the city. The apartment was beautiful, enormous, and completely silent. She placed her handbag on the table and walked toward the window. The city lights stretched endlessly below her. Yet for the first time, the silence felt unbearable. She thought about Maribel. She thought about Cassian's tired smile. She thought about the way he had looked at his daughter when she laughed. Then her phone rang. It was Cassian. Seraphina answered. He told her that Maribel had fallen asleep holding the photograph of her mother. Then he thanked Seraphina again. Before ending the call, he said that he knew their arrangement had only been for one day, but he hoped they could remain friends. Seraphina looked out at the city and realized something terrifying. She did not want to be just his friend. The next morning, Seraphina arrived at her company early. Her assistant noticed immediately that something had changed. The woman who normally walked through the office without stopping was suddenly distracted. During a board meeting, Seraphina was presented with a major acquisition opportunity. It was a company owned by Cassian. She stared at the documents. The acquisition would be extremely profitable. But the company was struggling, and buying it could allow Seraphina's corporation to take control of Cassian's business. Her board members encouraged her to proceed. Nobody knew that the owner was the man she had pretended to marry the day before. Seraphina could have used the situation to strengthen her own empire. Instead, she closed the file. She said she would not exploit someone's difficult circumstances for profit. Her board was stunned. Seraphina was changing. Not because she had become weaker. Because she had finally understood that strength was not about winning every battle. Sometimes strength meant choosing not to win at someone else's expense. That afternoon, she drove to Cassian's small office. He was shocked to see her. Seraphina told him that she had discovered his company was in financial trouble and that her board wanted to acquire it. Cassian immediately assumed she had come to negotiate. Instead, she offered him a partnership that would keep him in control. He stared at her in disbelief. He asked why she would do that. Seraphina looked at him for a long moment and admitted that she had spent years building a life where nobody could hurt her. But one afternoon with him and Maribel had shown her that a life without vulnerability was also a life without warmth. Cassian did not know what to say. Then Maribel appeared from the hallway. She ran toward Seraphina and hugged her as though she had been waiting all day. Seraphina closed her eyes. Cassian watched them, and tears quietly filled his eyes. He had spent years believing that his family had ended the day his wife died. But perhaps family was not always something you lost. Perhaps sometimes it was something life gave back to you in an unexpected form. Months passed. Cassian's company recovered. Seraphina learned to leave work before sunset. Maribel learned that it was safe to laugh again. And somewhere between business meetings, school pickups, afternoon walks, and quiet family dinners, the pretend marriage became something neither of them had expected. One warm afternoon, Cassian took Seraphina back to the same hotel garden where everything had begun. The sun was low, the flowers were glowing, and Maribel was playing nearby. Cassian looked at Seraphina and told her that the first time he asked her to pretend to be his wife, he had been desperate. This time, he was asking for something real. Seraphina's eyes filled with tears. She looked toward Maribel, who was smiling beneath the golden afternoon light. Then she looked back at Cassian. She realized she no longer wanted a perfect life. She wanted a real one. A life with imperfect days, unexpected problems, loud laughter, quiet tears, and people worth coming home to. She took Cassian's hand. And for the first time, there was no pretending. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who believes that broken hearts can heal, and subscribe to Epic Story Hub for more stories about hope, kindness, and unexpected love. And before the story ends, I have one special request for you. Comment, "Kindness deserves a second chance," if you believe that one act of kindness can completely change someone's life. As the sun disappeared beyond the city skyline, Maribel ran toward them and took both their hands. The three of them stood together beneath the fading golden light. Seraphina had once believed that success meant having everything under control. Now she understood something far more beautiful. Sometimes the greatest success in life is simply finding someone who makes you want to come home. And sometimes, the love you never planned for becomes the family your heart had been searching for all along.